Hi, my name is Daniel, and I'm 41 years old. I've always thought of myself as a fairly average guy, nothing too remarkable, but not a complete failure either. I have a decent career in it, am not in bad shape for my age, and for the most part I believed I had built a comfortable, safe life for myself and for my wife, Emily. We met when I was 26 and she was 23, both of us still figuring out who we were and what we wanted. She was studying art at the time, and I was just starting out in my first stable programming job. Somehow we clicked. Her free-spirited energy balanced out my cautious, analytical personality. Within 3 years, we were married. For most of our marriage, I would have described us as happy. Not perfect, no marriage is, but we laughed a lot, had a rhythm, a sense of partnership. We bought a modest house together, filled it with furniture and books and memories. When I thought about the future, it was always with her beside me, which is why the events of this past year have torn my life apart in a way I still don't fully know how to process. I suppose the beginning of the end started when Emily went back to school for a master's degree. She had always felt like she had unfinished business academically, and with our finances stable, we both agreed it was a good time. I supported her completely, or at least I thought I did. I worked longer hours, took over more of the chores, and encouraged her whenever she doubted herself. What I didn't realize was how much her world was changing in ways that mine wasn't. She started staying out late, studying in groups, attending social events connected to her program. I didn't think much of it. I trusted her. We had been together for over a decade by then, and infidelity wasn't even on my radar. If anything, I worried that I was being too paranoid whenever a flicker of doubt crossed my mind. I told myself she deserved freedom, that she was building her own path. The first sign that something was truly wrong came one Saturday morning when she left her phone on the kitchen counter while showering. Normally I never touched her phone, but it buzzed repeatedly with notifications. At first I ignored it, but then one message preview caught my eye. "Last night was incredible. I can't stop thinking about you." My stomach dropped. I know I shouldn't have, but I opened the thread. What I saw was like being punched in the chest. Dozens of messages from a man named Ryan, filled with intimacy, jokes, references to places I didn't know she had been. Photos, too, not explicit, but suggestive enough to leave no doubt about the nature of their relationship. I sat there at the kitchen table, her phone in my hand, my world collapsing. Part of me wanted to throw the phone across the room, part of me wanted to scream, and part of me just wanted to believe it wasn't real. By the time she came out of the shower, towel wrapped around her, I had placed the phone back exactly where it had been. She smiled at me like nothing had changed, like we were still us, and I somehow managed to smile back. That was the moment my life split into before and after. I didn't confront her right away. I needed time, information, proof that I wasn't misinterpreting something. So I played the role of the oblivious husband while inside I was unraveling. Over the next few weeks, I became an amateur detective. I checked her phone when she was asleep, looked at her calendar more closely, noticed when she said she was studying but her location data told a different story. The evidence stacked up until it was undeniable. Emily was cheating on me. The thing is, I wasn't just angry. I was shattered. I kept asking myself why. Was I not enough? Had I grown boring? Was our marriage just a cage to her? I looked in the mirror and started hating the man I saw, blaming myself for her betrayal even though some rational part of me knew the responsibility was hers. When I finally confronted her, it was on a Tuesday night. She came home late, smelling faintly of cologne that wasn't mine. I sat at the dining table with her phone in front of me, unlocked to one of her messages with Ryan. When she saw it, her face drained of color. She sat down slowly, and for a moment neither of us spoke. "Emily," I said, my voice trembling more than I wanted, "how long has this been going on?" She didn't deny it. She didn't even try. She just started crying. Her tears didn't feel like the tears of guilt. They felt like the tears of someone who had already made peace with the choices she had been making, and now only regretted that she had been caught. She covered her face with her hands and whispered, "I didn't mean for it to happen." I sat there in silence, my chest tight, my hands clenched on the table. I wanted to believe her, but it read too many messages, seen too many pictures. This wasn't a one-time lapse in judgment. It was a relationship, a parallel life she had been living without me. "How long?" I repeated, more firmly this time. She lowered her hands and looked at me. Her eyes were red, her cheeks wet. "About 6 months." 6 months. Half a year of lies. Half a year of telling me she was buried in textbooks when in reality she was probably tangled in his sheets. Something inside me cracked at that moment. though I didn't let it show. I just sat there, stone-faced, because if I let myself fall apart I wasn't sure it'd ever stop. Why? I asked, though I hated myself for asking. It was a pathetic question, but it was the only one my brain could form. She shook her head, her voice trembling. I don't know. It just happened. Ryan understands me in ways that... I slammed my hand down on the table before she could finish. The sound echoed in the room, startling both of us. Don't you dare, I hissed. Don't you dare stand there and tell me another man understands you better than the husband who has stood by you for nearly 15 years. She flinched, then looked away. The silence stretched on. I wanted her to fight for me, to fight for us, but instead she just sat there, shrinking into herself. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling while she curled on the far edge, her back to me. Every second felt like fire crawling under my skin. Memories of our wedding, our trips, our late-night talks, all tainted now, poisoned by the thought that while I was cherishing them, she had been drifting away toward someone else. In the days that followed, I lived in a fog. We had long conversations that went in circles, her apologizing, me demanding explanations, both of us crying until there were no tears left. She said she still loved me, that she hadn't wanted to lose me, but how could those words mean anything now? Love doesn't coexist with betrayal. I confided in my best friend, Mark, the only person I trusted enough to know. His advice was blunt. You can't come back from this, Dawn. She chose someone else. You need to choose yourself. But it wasn't that simple. 15 years of my life were tied up with her. Every corner of the house had a memory. Even our dog seemed to sense the fracture between us. One evening, I asked her if she wanted to be with him. She hesitated, and that hesitation was all the answer I needed. She couldn't even immediately deny it. My stomach turned to stone. I realized then that I was clinging to the ghost of a marriage that no longer existed. I began documenting everything. I know that sounds cold, but it was the only way I could regain some control. I kept records of her admissions, saved the messages I had found, spoke to a lawyer about what my options were. Divorce wasn't just an emotional decision, it was a logistical nightmare I had to prepare for. What hurt the most, though, were the little things. Catching myself reaching for my phone to text her about something funny, then remembering she wasn't really my person anymore. Cooking dinner and setting two plates out automatically before realizing I didn't want to eat with her. Driving past the coffee shop where we had our first date and feeling physically sick at the memory. People talk about heartbreak like it's just sadness, but for me it was rage, humiliation, grief, and longing all tangled together in a storm I couldn't escape. Some mornings I woke up feeling almost normal, and then the truth would slam into me again, heavier than the day before. I don't know yet how this story ends. We're still in the thick of it. She says she wants to work things out, but I don't trust her anymore. And without trust, what is there left? A house? Shared bills? Empty rituals? All I know is that I'm not the same man I was before I saw that message on her phone. Something in me died that day, and maybe something new is being born in its place, someone stronger, someone less naive. But the process of becoming him feels like walking barefoot across broken glass. The first time I saw Ryan in person was weeks later, though I didn't plan it that way. I had left work early one afternoon, drained and distracted, and as I pulled into our driveway, I saw a car I didn't recognize parked 2 houses down. A tall man stepped out, mid-30s, broad shoulders, dressed casually but with that kind of effortless style I've never had. He laughed into his phone, then walked toward the corner cafe. My stomach clenched because I knew without being told. This was him. I didn't follow. I couldn't. I just sat in my car gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles went white. My chest felt like it was collapsing. It wasn't jealousy in the traditional sense. It was more like I was looking at the physical embodiment of betrayal. All of the late nights, the half-truths, the missing pieces of Emily's time had been poured into this man. He wasn't just a name on a screen anymore. He was real, and he was walking freely in the daylight, completely unaware that the husband of the woman he was sleeping with was watching him. That evening, I confronted Emily again. I told her I had seen him. She didn't deny it. In fact, she started crying again, telling me she had tried to end things with him but couldn't seem to let go. I laughed, bitter, sharp, nothing like the way I used to laugh. So what am I, Emily? Your backup plan. The man you fall back on when Ryan's busy. She begged me not to see it that way, but I couldn't help it. That's exactly what I was. A safety net. After that, my anger began to outweigh my grief. I stopped asking her why and started asking myself how much longer am I going to let this happen. I imagined scenarios where I showed up at Ryan's apartment, knocked on his door, and confronted him face to face. I pictured shouting, maybe even throwing punches. But then I imagined Emily running after me, not to protect me, but to protect him, and that thought froze me cold. I didn't want to become violent. I didn't want to lose the last shred of self-respect I still had. So instead, I poured my energy into therapy. I booked a counselor for myself, not for us, though she suggested couples therapy too. I needed someone impartial to hear the mess inside my head. The therapist, a calm, middle-aged woman named Karen, told me something that has stayed with me. You can't control Emily's choices. You can only control your response to them. Ask yourself, is this the marriage you want to keep rebuilding, or are you clinging to what it used to be? That question haunted me. I realized I was trying to resuscitate a body that was already dead. Nights were the hardest. I'd lie in bed beside her, pretending to be asleep while my mind raced with images of her with him. I imagined her laughing at his jokes, touching his arm the way she used to touch mine, whispering secrets in the dark. Sometimes I'd get up and sit in the living room just to escape the suffocating silence of our bedroom. The couch became more familiar than my own bed. My family eventually found out. My sister came over one Sunday, and when she saw the exhaustion on my face, she pressed me until I broke. Telling her felt like ripping open a wound, but also like a release. She was furious on my behalf, more furious than I could even allow myself to be. She called Emily names I hadn't dared to say out loud, names that made Emily flinch when she overheard. Part of me felt vindicated. Part of me felt ashamed. I started to notice how different people reacted when they found out. Mark told me to leave immediately, no hesitation. My sister told me I deserved better. My mother, though, surprised me. She told me marriage is complicated, that people make mistakes, and that if I still loved Emily, maybe it was worth trying to forgive. That confused me more than anything. Was I weak for considering staying? Was I cruel for considering leaving? There was no clean answer. One particularly bad night, I couldn't stop myself. I scrolled through Emily's phone while she was asleep, and I found fresh messages from Ryan. She had promised me it was over, but clearly it wasn't. The messages weren't as sexual as before, they were emotional. He was telling her he missed her, that he didn't like being the other man, that she needed to choose. And she replied with lines like, I just don't know what to do. I love him, but I love you too. I think that was the lowest point of my life. Seeing my wife write those words to another man, that she loved both of us, made me physically ill. Love is not a divisible resource. You don't portion it out like slices of bread. I realized then that whatever love she claimed to feel for me wasn't the same anymore. The next morning, I packed a bag. Just a small one, clothes, toiletries, my laptop. When she came into the kitchen and saw it, her face crumpled. Dawn, please don't, I cut her off. I need space. I can't breathe in this house anymore. I went to stay with Mark for a while. Sleeping on his lumpy couch was somehow more peaceful than sleeping in my own bed with her beside me. For the first time in months, I felt a flicker of clarity, and yet even in that clarity, I missed her. I hated myself for it, but I did. I missed her laugh, her presence, the way she used to reach for my hand without thinking. Grief is cruel like that. It attaches itself to your memories and makes them ache. Living at Mark's place gave me the distance I needed. It wasn't comfortable, it wasn't home, but it was quiet. There were no late-night vibrations from Emily's phone, no awkward silences across the dinner table, no constant replaying of her excuses. Just me, my thoughts, and the brutal clarity of space. During those weeks, I thought a lot about the man I used to be, the version of me that believed in permanence, that believed love was enough to protect us from everything. That man was gone. What remained was someone harder, someone more cautious, but also someone more awake to reality. Emily tried to reach out almost every day. Texts, calls, long emails filled with apologies and promises. She wanted to meet, to talk, to convince me that we could rebuild. I ignored most of them. Sometimes I read the messages late at night, staring at the words until they blurred, but I rarely answered. The part of me that still loved her wanted to believe, but the part of me that finally respected myself knew better. Eventually, we met one last time. Neutral ground, a park bench on a cool autumn afternoon. She looked smaller than I remembered, fragile in her oversized sweater, eyes swollen from crying. She told me she had ended things with Ryan for good, that she had realized what she was about to lose. She begged me to give her another chance, and for the first time, I didn't feel rage or desperation. I just felt empty, like all the emotions had already burned themselves out, leaving behind only ash. I listened, nodded, even held her gaze, but inside I knew it was over. Not because I didn't love her, some stubborn part of me probably always will, but because I couldn't trust her. And without trust, love is a ghost. When I finally spoke, my voice was calm. Emily, I don't hate you. I really don't. But I can't live the rest of my life wondering if every late night, every unexplained absence, every smile at another man is a repeat of this. That's not a marriage. That's a prison. And I can't do it anymore. She cried again, but I didn't. I had no tears left. We sat in silence for a while, and then I stood, gave her one last look, and walked away. It wasn't dramatic. No shouting, no scene. Just two people breaking apart after years of being tied together. The divorce process was messy, as divorces always are. Lawyers, paperwork, splitting assets, deciding who got what. But once it was finalized, I felt lighter. Not happy, not yet, but free. Now, months later, I'm learning who I am without her. I've started running again, something I gave up years ago. I go to therapy weekly. I've reconnected with old friends, even taken a couple of solo trips just to prove to myself that I can. My house feels emptier, yes, but also more honest. Every corner belongs to me now. People keep asking if he'll ever trust again, if he'll ever fall in love again. The truth is, I don't know. Some wounds don't heal the way you expect. They leave scars that shape the rest of your life. But I'm okay with that. Scars are proof that I survived. When I look back, I don't see myself as a victim anymore. I see a man who loved deeply, who was betrayed, but who found the strength to walk away when staying would have destroyed him. That's not weakness. That's courage, even if it doesn't always feel like it. So here I am, 41 years old, single for the first time in decades, rebuilding brick by brick. It's terrifying, but it's also liberating. For the first time in a long time, the future is mine again. And maybe one day, when the pain is nothing more than a faded memory, I'll look back on this chapter not as the end of something, but as the beginning of becoming the man I was always meant to be.